Today is going to be the first video in a small series about developing a 5-room dungeon. This is going to be for a one-shot that I'll be running for my players, so if your name is any of the following, and you decide to go ahead and watch this, I have a summon to Rask button with your name on it that I will not hesitate to use. Seriously though, spoilers ahead. First, a little background on the 5-room dungeon. Basically, it's a template used for crafting an adventure for your players that's not only more bite-sized than other formats, but also can be used to incorporate all of the different varying aspects of tabletop RPGs, such as combat, role-playing, puzzle solving, and, if you're my players, probably tax evasion. Each room of the dungeon can be set up with a specific scenario to dip into one or more of these aspects, ensuring that all of your PCs get to utilize their different strengths throughout the session. Got a paladin who's only there for praying prayers and smoting smites? Boom! They've got a room made entirely for them. Got a rogue who wants to pick locks and take the time to carefully observe their surroundings, searching for any intentionally obscure triggers or false floors that might activate one or more mechanical devices that could cause dangerous bodily harm. We've got a room for them too! We will not be going over the room with bard-specific scenarios in this video. This template is also designed to make putting together a dungeon for your players as a DM quick and painless, but I have a feeling I'm going to jump right over that part and try to make it as convoluted and painful for myself as I possibly can. So let's get started. We begin, as all good stories do, at the beginning, namely Room 1, also known as the entrance. This room is intended to help get your players into the swing of things quickly, usually by dropping them right into the action. The entrance is meant to be guarded or trapped, and your players will have to overcome this hurdle before getting inside. Personally, I've decided to start this off with a combat scenario. The local village has been complaining about restless spirits hanging around the ruins of an old church that just so happens to reside over the mouth of an ancient cave. If my players want to get in there and figure out what's driving all these spirits to haunt the place, they're going to have to fight their way through. Speaking of which, we'll be using specters for this combat. With only 12 AC and 22 hit points, a handful of these things will be perfect cannon fodder to lull my party of level 6 PCs into a false sense of security about their chances. While this combat won't be particularly hard for the players, I want to take this opportunity to really lay the atmosphere on thick. Room 1 is basically the introduction to the whole dungeon, and I want to make sure that the eerie tone for the rest of the adventure is set perfectly. Moving on to Room 2. This room is supposed to be a puzzle and or role-playing challenge. Basically, this is where the switch-up happens. In the entrance, we were able to deal with the situation with Braun. Now the players are going to have to use their brains. Insert joke about dumb players here. For my purposes, I'm going to be making this room a bit of an homage to Indiana Jones / Tomb Raider. Once inside the cave, my PCs are going to find themselves having to walk along a very narrow ledge with a drop in front of them of about 20 feet or so. This gorge is going to be filled with sporadic stalagmites. Stalagmites at the bottom, and surrounded with the bones of various unfortunate adventurers that came before. If they want to move full speed, they'll have to make dexterity checks to keep their balance on the ledge, or they can half their speed and avoid the danger of falling. The secret here is to go slowly, as the bottom of the gorge is rigged with magical wards that trigger hidden grease traps to activate at certain intervals along the ledge above. The moment one person falls, the whole party will be in greatly more danger of doing so, taking bludgeoning and or piercing damage as they fall into the gorge. The other trick here is that the more of these grease traps get triggered, the more of the grease fills up the gorge itself, putting whoever falls into danger of drowning in the thick liquid. Still working out all the details on this one, as I definitely want it to be a nail biter, but I think I've got a good base concept for now. Next comes Room 3, also known as the Trick, or Setback. This room is meant to act as a way to up the stakes. Something happens that's unexpected, and the PCs have to figure out how to proceed. You can also use this room to try and weaken your players so that they'll have a tougher fight with the big final boss, making them use up healing potions or spell slots that might be useful later. I'll be using this as a fairly roleplay heavy room with a good dash of combat at the end. After overcoming the trial in Room 2, my players will find themselves walking through an ancient stone doorway that leads into some kind of decrepit crypt-like structure. In here, they'll find an NPC, the grandchild of one of the village elders, clutching an old bag and praying to their god as two ghosts stand a couple of yards further in, regarding them strangely. There's a line of ancient runes carved into the ground, reaching from one side of the room to the other, and the ghosts seem unable to cross that line. Once calmed down, the NPC will explain to the party that they're trying to save their village by returning the skull of one of the spirits that's been haunting them to this crypt. Apparently, their grandfather took the skull long ago in the hopes of controlling this particular spirit, but nothing but misfortune and death has followed. This has escalated even further recently, resulting in many villagers losing their own heads to the thing in the endless search for its own. The NPC will let the players know that their grandfather told them of a way to banish the spirit from this place for good, and explain that the means to do so are in the next room, if they can get there with the skull. What the party does with this information is up to them, but the moment they cross that line of runes, which they'll have to in order to move further into the dungeon, the ghosts will attack. This will also trigger the Guardians of the Crypt, 2 mummies and an Eidolon. The Eidolon will quickly possess a nearby sacred statue to attack the players and the ghosts indiscriminately. This combat scenario is meant to be hard. The sacred statue has an AC of 19, and between the ghost's possession ability and the mummy's ability to curse players and not let them heal, I'm definitely going to be setting them up for the endgame. Next, we have the main event, Room 4. This is where we get our boss battle with the Headless Spirit, and I get to go crazy with lair actions. I am definitely pulling out all the stops for this room. The players will find themselves deep in the crypt now, walking into a large square room with 4 pedestals in each corner. This room has many crumbling walls and columns and almost resembles some kind of ancient maze. At the center of the room, glowing with ghostly green energy, is a very large central column that, at the end of each round, turns 90 degrees clockwise, projecting an impassable wall of spectral force all the way across the room from 2 sides. This effectively isolates one half of the chamber from the other every round, and since the column is constantly turning, players will find themselves split up and unable to reach each other in critical moments in the big battle to come. If a player should find themselves in the path of this wall when it gets generated, they'll end up being pushed off to one side or the other and taking force damage as a result. Their goal, if they decide to follow what the NPC told them, is to activate all 4 of the pedestals in the corners, allowing them to place the skull into the center column and banish the Headless Spirit. The pedestals will all have a minor puzzle element to them that I'll talk about in the next video, but basically they'll require teamwork to activate. Finally, and definitely most sweetly, they'll be facing the Headless Spirit himself, a headless centaur that goes by the simple title of that was weird. I'll be going into a lot more detail about this guy in the next video as well, but TLDR, he's going to be a pretty serious pain. His whole shtick is being highly mobile, hitting hard, and disorienting the PCs so that they can't work cohesively. Unlike the rest of the monsters in this one-shot, he will be entirely homebrew, and I'll be showing off his stat block and explaining the logic behind his abilities. If the players manage to survive this encounter and activate all 4 pedestals, the headsman is temporarily pacified, and we can finally move on to Room 5. This room doesn't even have to be a separate room. Room 5 is known as the Reward, but it's often used to pull a classic old M. Night Shyamalan twist. In this case, the PCs are going to end up speaking to the now peaceful Eidolon Guardian that they fought before, who will explain to them that in order to banish this spirit, which has been riling up all the other ghouls and ghosts in the crypt against the local village, they're going to have to exchange a soul for a soul. One spirit is going to have to be added to the crypt in order for the headsman to be cast out. The party at this point will have a decision to make. Leave the village to be overrun by the ghosts of this crypt, sacrifice the NPC they met earlier to accomplish the mission, or lay down one of their own lives. Whatever they do, it's going to be a punch to the gut, and hopefully leave an impression. I have no idea how my players are going to react to this, and obviously most of these ideas are still in the development stages, but I think I have the basics of the adventure fairly well planned out. Please, let me know if you have any ideas or suggestions for improving all of this. I do read every single comment, and I'd love to hear how you guys would change any of these scenarios. In our next video, I'll be starting the process of building the full terrain for each of these rooms. I'll also be delving further into how I'll be running each combat sequence, what minis I'll be using, etc. If you like this style of video and would like to see me go more in-depth with dungeon design in future, please feel free to drop a like and a subscription. Honestly, had a whole ton of fun working on this one and would love to do more. Okay, bye.